Hello, Aileen Gallagher here. So today I want to answer a question that came up over the last couple of days, and that question is, why is there a part of us that actually wants to stay stuck? Why is there a part of us that doesn't actually want to go ahead, achieve our goals, and overcome whatever resistance that there is to us? Making the changes and doing what we need to do to get the results and get where we want to go. So this actually came up from a conversation I had with a client. And she's quite honest. She goes, like, we're working towards doing what we need to do. I suppose to give a bit of a background, she has her own business, quite successful, but she's coasting. She knows she's coasting. She knows that she's not pushing herself to achieve what she really wants to. She has a lot of things she wants to achieve, but she, again, seems to kind of sabotage, seems to not do the work that she needs to do to get there, stay organized, not follow the plan, and all of those things that keep us stuck. But she also admitted that there's a part of her that wants to stay stuck, and she didn't understand why that was. And I suppose when we have all that going on and we're actually trying to kind of overcome the resistance to doing what we need to do, that just adds to the inner conflict and the inner chatter, that just keeps us kind of wondering, like, okay, well, do I actually really want this, or not? Or is there a part of me that just kind of wants to not move on and not go ahead? And I've seen that a lot with business coaching clients over the years, where we start off, we're following a plan, they're full of eagerness and full of optimism and full of enthusiasm for what we're going to do. And then as we kind of move on and get into having to do things that are beyond their comfort zone, they start to kind of think about, well, do I really want this? Like, is this like, we're actually fine, we're comfortable, we don't need this, we don't need to go to the next level. Do I need to create all this discipline, and do I need to add all of this new level of tasks in to actually achieve those goals? Or do I really want those goals? Is that greedy? That's a lot of kind of feedback, and that's kind of the natural thing that seems to happen when we actually move forward. So there's two reasons why there's a part of us that really wants to actually stay where we are. The first one is that our minds like what's familiar. So it's actually hardwired to resist anything that's unfamiliar and to gravitate back to what's familiar. So you see this all the time, we'll say, with different types of people who've been in abusive or narcissistic relationships, and that relationship ends or breaks down, but then they end up with the exact same person again, nearly, and they tell you that, okay, yeah, I feel like I've known this person all my life, and it is exactly nearly like that, because it's their exact replica of the person that they might have been with before. We gravitate towards what's familiar, even though it's not what we want. It's actually completely opposite to what we say that we want, but it's familiar, and that's the way the mind is. That's what the mind knows. The mind doesn't know what's unfamiliar, so it tries to keep us on the familiar path. We've thought those thoughts over and over again. You see it with lottery winners, people who came from maybe going month to month, and then they have a big lottery win or win a lot of money. We know the stats on that within 2 to 3 years, those people are back right where they were before they won the lottery, because that's what's familiar. Eating habits, what else have we got? And where we are in business. So where we are in business is kind of, that's the level that's familiar to us. And this client that I was speaking to said in her own words that, I feel as if I do move beyond this point and actually do the things that I know I need to do and that I can do to get to that next level, that I feel then I have to be performing. And there's this deep sense of fear, nearly, well, if I get to that level, what's expected of me then? What if I can't actually maintain that level of performance? Or what if I try all of this and I still fail? What what are the negative things that are going to come if I am successful. So that's why that there's this part of us that wants to stay exactly where we are because of the fear and the outcomes of what happens if we do move up to that next level. And if you can imagine maybe a field of high rushes, and you're trying to you've created a pathway through that field to get to the other side, and it's a well-worn path. And as you go through that, obviously the more times that you've gone and crossed that particular path, the easier it is to get across, because you've stamped down the rushes, you've made the space, and it's quite easy. There's a pathway that has been formed and you get there. And then when we're at this point where we're trying to do something different and create new thoughts, new beliefs, new habits, so that we actually become comfortable with where we're trying to go to the next level goals that we're trying to achieve. It's like that we're trying to create a new pathway. And if you think of those high rushes, high grasses in a field, and you're trying to create that pathway, it's difficult because you haven't been there before, and you've tried obviously to create the path. And it's far easier to think at one point, well, instead of trying to keep going till this path becomes as open and as free as the other path, it's easier to nearly go back along the other path, the well-worn track. And that's the well-worn track where we're telling ourselves things that, well, what happens if I fail? What happens if I'm successful? I can't do this. It's okay for others. I'm not good enough. And all of those things come into our minds. So that's one of the reasons why, as I said, part of us really wants to stay stuck. It's familiar. The mind resists what's unfamiliar. And then the second reason why part of us wants to stay stuck is there's often a secondary gain in staying where we are. I had a client recently who couldn't work consistently towards deadlines, always left it to the last minute. Last week, running up to a deadline, and that ended up working 18-20 hours days to do that. And that was a consistent habit over years, that she did the exact same thing over and over again. And that's what she wanted to change. And we did some work to look at why it was that needed to change, or why she kept doing that to herself. Because I spoke to her actually at one of those times when she was in that week run up, and she was just like a complete wreck, complete mess. She was like, I cannot keep doing this to myself. And then I spoke to her the week afterwards when we were doing another session, and she was fine again. She goes, and one of the reasons why she had difficulty resisting the change to actually do what she needed to do was there was a benefit. When that week came, somebody always bailed her out. She felt that she didn't have to do the work consistently. Yes, she had that total turmoil and hardship of those few days right before the deadline, but she always made it. So she could see the secondary gain in it. And as it turns out, then that was something that was throughout her whole life, through school projects, college projects, and it was oftentimes around money as well, where she would spend all the money that she would had until she was like backed into a corner and really was desperate for money. And then her father usually would bail her out, or some other relative. So she actually saw this kind of secondary benefit to keeping that habit and not overcoming it. Now, obviously, that wasn't going to help her to get to her long-term goals if you're in a constant state of, just doing what you have to do to reach a deadline. You're obviously then not going to be working consistently on the things that are not urgent but important to get you where you say that you want to go. So hopefully that explains why, as I said, there are two of the main reasons. There's obviously others, but why it is that there's part of us that wants to stay stuck, that doesn't actually want to reach the goals. Us. That's why we set goals, why we say, do I really want this? Is that greedy? We have enough. There's other people worse than us. Often we hear that. How do we get over it? Well, I suppose the first thing is to, be aware of it, that is the natural, that's a natural resistance that's going to occur. but if we're not aware of it and know that, oh yeah, I know exactly what my mind is at right now. My mind is trying to keep me on this path that's familiar. But even though I now try and talk myself out of, whether I really want to achieve these goals, or, whether it would actually be better for me not to move on, better for me to stay stuck so I don't have to deal with what might happen if I'm successful, or who I'll have to look after, or what other negativity might come from that success. And this is a real fear that is actually going on. It's a natural process that happens as we try to move forward. So that's the I suppose the first step to kind of overcome it, to be aware that this is happening, and then do the work that actually works on changing and removing the emotion that's associated to that beliefs in the subconscious. So why is there a part of us that wants to stay stuck? One is that whole thing, mind likes what's familiar, resists what's unfamiliar. We have to be aware of it. We have to then, if we want to overcome it, and we want to know how to overcome it, we have to start making what's unfamiliar familiar in small steps. And we have to start to create that path that's at the moment we haven't actually worn through that path. We have to create the new path and make it easier to go on that new path than on the old path. And that's part of the reason why often what we do is give that recording to help to actually wire in the new thoughts, the new, more empowering beliefs, so that we actually change that old pathway, so it becomes easier to go the new pathway than to revert back to the old pathway. So hope that answers your question, or hope it actually makes it easier to understand why it is that there is a part of us that actually wants to stay stuck. That's it. Bye for now.